I think there's a lot of emphasis put on Instagram, which is fine, which is good. It's definitely been integral to a lot of my success. However, what I keep telling people is like the skill, the success, the business acumen came before Instagram. And I use Instagram as a tool to amplify and leverage all the other things I do. Instagram itself has no value. The audience I had to cultivate, the content I create, the brand loyalty I create. So you can do that anywhere.
Welcome to Female Founder World. I'm your host, Jasmine Garnsworthy, and today's chat is with FlexMami. Hey Flex, welcome to the show. I guess let's kick off with a bit of an intro for those who don't follow your glorious multi-hyphenate life on Instagram. Who are you and what are you working on?
Amazing. So I always find it really bizarre to introduce myself because I usually like to condense what I do depending on the context. But for the sake of extreme clarity, my name is Flex. It is not my real name, but it's the name that everybody knows me as. And for the last almost 8 years, I've been a DJ, a TV presenter, a podcaster. I've got a Spotify original podcast. I am a best-selling author. I own 2 companies and I'm an influencer. I also am a plus-size model and a professional opinion haver.
Okay, so just a couple of things.
There's a few things.
Incredible. I do see on your Instagram story, sometimes it makes me laugh when you get sent mail and it's under the name like Flex or Flex Mama,
Yeah.
and you're like, that's not actually my real name.
And I'm at the post office and they're kind of like, do you have ID, Flex? And I'm kind of like, no, but here's an Instagram page. Is that government identification?
Does that work?
Sometimes, but it's just it's not embarrassing. It just is unnecessary. And I should be able to have ID with my alias on it, but I also feel like people should be sending me things addressed to my actual name. But, we move, we deal. It's not a big deal.
Can you take us back to how you got your start in all of this? I think DJing was the first kind of foot in the door for you, but can you take us back to those early days before you were an entrepreneur, an influencer, best-selling author? How did things all start?
Yeah, DJing was the first thing. I was working full-time in PR and then I moved to social and digital marketing, which was fine. I mean, I think those industries are really quite stereotypically toxic. You have all of these young women being overworked, under-resourced, exploited, having to, give their firstborn child to these industries, and for what, really? And I was really struggling because I had wrapped up all of my self-worth in a job that was quite inconsequential to me, really. Like the clients I was working on, the tasks I had to do, I don't think I actually cared, but I respect work and I respect the sacred, transaction between getting paid to do a job. And so I was like, I'm going to see it through. But basically what happened is I experienced a bit of burnout. And then I thought perhaps I would feel maybe less stressed about work if I had a hobby or something else to kind of take my mind off work. But at that stage, I was very much in my girl boss era. So I thought I would just get another job and this job will be more fun and I'll have both jobs and that'll be good. So I remember I was 20 at the time, so I was going out a lot. And because I didn't drink, it was getting very boring very quickly for me. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun if I could come here to the club, get dressed up and have something to do? And so I asked these promoters if I could be a door girl, and they said yes. And from there, I was offering them, PR and business management advice. And long story short, I'd asked them why they were paying for DJs to DJ from 9 p.m. to midnight when nobody was in the club. It's embarrassing for the DJs. It's expensive for the promoters. And I was like, why don't you people who are invested in the business do it? Save yourself some money. And they said, we don't want to do it, or, it's just not a priority. And then I was like, I'll do it. So it sounds bizarre when I'm thinking about it, because if you can imagine, I'm hired by the venue to do a job and I've solicited myself out to a promoter who's also hired by the venue. But the venue said it was fine because what am I meant to do? Stand outside for 3 hours? that's how I became a DJ. And because I was, a club kid at the time, I was always out, always dressed up. It became very easy to get gigs because that's how people booked back in the days. Like if you're a cute girl and you've got cute girlfriends, then come to the club. And so it kind of snowballed. I was doing an hour here and there, and then 2 hours a week, and then 10 hours a week, and then 20 hours a week. And it got to the point where I was doing about 25 hours of DJing and 30 something hours of PR. And I was kind of like, I need to not do both, but I don't want to do my PR job. And I don't feel like DJing is a real job. So can I really quit one real job to do a fake job? But I did. And so in about, I think it was 6 months, it became like my full-time job. And then the burnout happened because I don't have great work-life balance. And then I thought, again, if I had another job, something else to take my mind off it, I would enjoy myself. And then I became an MTV presenter, which we don't need to get into the specifics because it doesn't matter. Long story short, I sent an email. I became an MTV presenter. And then from there, in addition to doing presenting and DJing, I started doing radio at a community radio station called FBI. And that was really fun and really cool. And then at this stage, I was being perceived as an influencer, which is, I guess, what happens when you build a profile online. And so I started doing influencer work, but just not very well. I would always say I don't compete where I can't compare. And if we're thinking 2013, what it was like to be an influencer then, it was very much idealistic life, idealistic bodies, idealistic everything. And so I was like, this is just not for me. And I don't want to feel insecure because I can't morph my body to be different to what it is. And so basically I decided that I would have to differentiate myself. And so I started facilitating these conversations on my platform. Every day I'd come onto the platform, ask a question, start a discussion. And then that transitioned into me using those questions to make a card game. And that's when I had started my first company, Flex Factory. Well, that's not when I started it. That's when the idea started. And then everything kind of followed. Podcasting happened in the same year. I wrote the book 2 years ago, launched it this year. So it all is super convoluted. It's not sounding as linear as I'm making it sound, but it's just a lot of stuff to have happened over the last 7 or so years. And I imagine people think that it happened overnight or it happened in a way that it was always bound to happen. But no, it was difficult. And I do think the odds were stacked up against me. Like, who just becomes a DJ and then a MTV presenter and then runs a company? It just doesn't happen like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to unpick there. I think the theme that I see with you is it's not just being in the right place at the right time, but you've very actively gone after. If you see an opportunity, you've just been like, hey, I'm just going to ask. What's the worst that can happen? That kind of seems to be like a trend that I see throughout that. And what I'm really interested in is how you're so consistent with your personal brand and then everywhere that you kind of show up in this really multifaceted career. And how do you think about that when you only have, so much of yourself that you want to give, and also there are probably parts of yourself maybe that you don't want to have out there? How do you think about that?
I didn't think about it. And this is now I'm dealing with the consequences of my own actions, because I assumed, however many years ago when we all were commodifying ourselves, that we were just giving the internet everything. So I did the same. I was like, these are all of my thoughts, all of my insecurities, all of my flaws. Please have them. And I guess that kind of coincided with like this authenticity culture, authenticity marketing thing that's happening. And so it was like good, right place, right time. And I guess because I'd already differentiated myself, I imagined when people were consuming me, they were kind of like, well, she's different to what's out there. So I'll just have this different experience with her. And so as my profile began to grow, I started recognizing how difficult it was for me to reconcile with the fact that I just was selling myself, because every deal, every time a client would want to work with me, every time somebody would fight me on what my value was, it was all so personal. And I was thinking, how's everybody else doing this and not getting their feelings hurt? Turns out people aren't doing that. They're being caricatures of themselves. They're showing, just a fraction of who they are in this really glossy, stylized way. And they are creating really physical, tangible barriers between the person they actually are and the brand they're presenting, which I think is a very smart way to run your business because, I think now people are seeing the benefits of me being this authentic person online, but they're not seeing how difficult it is for me to work. So yeah, when I can call out a brand for not being inclusive, that like looks great for my audience. And kind of like, this girl is so amazing. Like I feel empowered to follow her, but I just lost the job. So like,
Yeah.
I'm never working with them. So what happens to my bag? And I think also people aren't recognizing, and I didn't recognize that building a community that is fundamentally based on two-way communication means that I really exacerbated this parasocial relationship my audience has with me. They really do think they know me and I know them. And so there's almost like this lack of boundary, lack of personal respect, lack of consideration, that I'm not just an avatar built for their entertainment and their education. I'm a whole person. And as much as I like to talk about things like race and identity and psychology, I don't know you. So I don't want to talk about your personal situation. I don't want you to conflate my personal experience with your personal experience. And I don't want you to use my thoughts or my actions or my beliefs as a scapegoat for your own actions and your own thoughts and your own beliefs. And it often feels like I'm not allowed to just be without consideration for how that might impact somebody I have no idea exists who follows me. It's really odd. And I would definitely do it differently because it's really hard to set boundaries in retrospect. It's really hard to tell people, you need to respect me as a person. I don't exist for your entertainment and I don't exist to educate you or empower you. And if I so happen to, enjoy. You are entitled to consume the content I create for your consumption anytime you want. Anything else is you're asking for too much.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great boundary. So I'm really interested, like, how you think about Instagram now for people who are kind of starting out and they understand the value of a personal brand if they want to be self-employed. Do you think there's still opportunity for people to build profile on the app and build following on the app, or do you think they should be going to TikTok or somewhere else?
I definitely think there's still an opportunity to build a profile on the app. I just think people need to be more intentional about what they even think a personal brand is and what they imagine it's going to do for them. If you think a personal brand is integral to selling a product, it really isn't. And I feel as though you might find yourself in a little bit of conflict trying to sell yourself in addition to a product. If you're selling a personal brand because you're selling a service, again, do you need Instagram to reach your ideal audience? Do you need to be servicing the general public, or can you create a new pathway from you to your consumer? I think there's a lot of emphasis put on Instagram, which is fine, which is good. It's definitely been integral to a lot of my success. However, what I keep telling people is like the skill, the success, the business acumen came before Instagram. And I use Instagram as a tool to amplify and leverage all the other things I do. Instagram itself has no value. The audience I had to cultivate, the content I create, the brand loyalty I create. So you can do that anywhere. And it's going to be difficult on any platform. But I think what people should be really considerate about is I personally believe that you shouldn't be centralizing all of your assets on one platform. So if Instagram dies tomorrow and you're going to be struggling to make a bag, you need to diversify, build that email database, have a website, have a different social media platform that people know to reach you on. And I also think there's value in understanding not even like who you're trying to reach or what you're trying to reach them for, but why. Like, why do you need to reach these people? Why are you so desperate for followers? Why are you so desperate for likes? I always tell people I was making like the equivalent of what somebody with 500,000 followers is making when I had 10K followers. That's because I had a brand around me. I had other skills, other interests. I was always upskilling. The followers really don't dictate the kind of brand or wealth I'm able to create. Even now, I only have 150,000 followers. And people are kind of like, that's probably from when she went on Big Brother. No, it wasn't. It really wasn't.
Yeah, we glossed over the Big Brother thing as well. I'm of all the things you've done, there's another one, and that was quite recent as well. Was that 2020 or 2021?
2020.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like the years have just blurred together. I can't
literally
remember what happened when.
Oh, wait,
Mm-hmm.
no.
Yeah.
No, I did. Yeah, I did do it in 2020. It launched in 2021. I did
Okay.
do it in 2020. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. um, so I'm seeing a lot of influencers who also have kind of worked with that following to build physical products and to productize their personal brand now move away from, changing their handle so that they've got their private handle and then the business handle is the one with all of their following. And it's clear that they're gearing themselves up to exit at some point over the next 5 years or something. That's how I'm perceiving it. How do you look at that? Is that something where you're like, okay, I need to at some point, the product-based business has to be separate from a little bit more separate from myself as a person so that I can sell the company or bring in external people to run the company? Or is it always like, no, this is me, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing. It's always going to be a part of me.
Yeah, I mean, well, for me, Flex Factory, the company, we have 3 employees. So it already is separate from me in some way. Other people feed into that vision. I have a full-time employee for FlexMami as well. So I've already made that transition to help other people elevate the business direction and where it's going. And I think everybody, all influencers, I'm also often really scared of influencers who think that having a public profile isn't fickle. like, like social zeitgeists constantly change and they constantly move. And you are naive to think that whatever is popular now won't be the thing you're cancelled for in 3 years. And I also think that a lot of influencers or public figures or whatever don't know how to leverage their skills outside of their face. So take your face out of your brand. Who are you? What do you stand for? What do you sell? Is there any interest in you? And for a lot of them, there isn't. And I think that's a tough pill to swallow. So most just like to live in the delusion that like, oh no, I'll just be hot and cool and famous forever. You won't. And, influencers in particular, or people with, considerably huge profiles, you already have a shortcut to build a really great business. And while you may not have the skills, you have the resources and the income to hire people who do have the skills. I just think that, again, business acumen is not something that's a priority if you don't know it's a priority. And I don't think a lot of them realize like you have a shortcut. You already have an audience, you have a database, you have a need. Just do something with that. Anything.
Totally. Totally. How have you kind of grown your own business skills as the business has grown? Are there resources that you've tapped into or a network that you've tapped into, or is it just intuitive that you grow as the business grows?
It is intuitive, but I think having a general interest in self development really helps a lot. Being somebody who's naturally interested in philosophy and psychology, those principles that you would apply for self development also apply to business development because you're working with people either way. Sometimes you're the product, sometimes they're the product. So those skills are definitely transferable. I mean, I do love a podcast. I love Female Startup Club. I love Shopify's podcast. But what it comes down to, a general interest should beget general knowledge. If you're actually interested, you will do the research. If you actually want to, you will do the research necessary. And I think a lot of people are very interested in what it looks like to have a personal brand, what it looks like to be a public figure, what it looks like to achieve in a conventional way, until they recognize that for most people, it is a combination of admin, understanding the industry you're working with, and repetition and replicating what's been done, but optimizing in a way that works best for you. I feel as though what I struggle to tell people is like everything is strategic. Every single thing I do is strategic. I might visually, or even the way I plan my day, I'm a very unstructured person. I'm going to sleep at 6 a.m., I'm waking up at midday, I'm vibing, I run my business intuitively. But I can do that because I've got a boundary of structure, a boundary of logic, a boundary of objective thinking, which gives me the permission to be a bit loose within those confines. So yeah, I just feel like everything you need to learn exists. It's on the internet. Just don't get, what's the word? I think people get like glamorized by the delusion that is the final product. Don't get glamorized by the final product. And also just be realistic with yourself. Like for me, building a personal brand is cool, but it's the same old story. Like I work more than I sleep. Yeah, you make some good money, but you get taxed a shit ton as well. The more you grow, the more work there is to do. Once you achieve something in a public way, there's an expectation you keep achieving. These things, like, it's just a job. And yeah, it's a cooler job than most, but it's a harder job than most. Like, if I've got to wake up and think about like the salaries of the people who work under me, that's not hot. Like, I want to be a lady of leisure. I want to be a socialite. I don't want to think about numbers.
Amazing. So when you're thinking about launching new physical products, or you're launching a new book, or whatever it is that you have to get out into the world, what are some of the things that like work for you to help people connect with that, and in terms of just really like acquiring new customers and monetizing the audience that you've already built?
Mm-hmm. The number one thing and it's the number one strategy I use for every single thing I launch and do, is you have to keep your audience across the process. Do not be that person who's like, I got a secret project coming up, launching on Thursday. No, because you have to be mindful of like what makes someone buy something. Nobody cares that your product is good. They care about what your product is going to do for them, how it makes them feel, how it's going to improve their life. And you have to, even when you reflect on your own consumer like buying decisions, you're not like, I want the best in the business. If you did, you wouldn't buy half the things you would. You look at the girl in the photo and you want to be like her, you want to dress like her, you want her life. You're projecting all these emotional metrics onto a transaction. And so for me, whenever I'm making a card game, whenever I'm launching a book, whatever it might be, I make sure that it's not a surprise when it launches. You have, like, think of this, like, it took me 2 years to write my book, which means I had 2 years to market it. From the brainstorming process to the conception of the idea to writing the pages to workshopping ideas, all of that was done publicly to a point. Obviously there was a layer of a barrier because I didn't want people to steal the ideas, blah, blah, blah. But by the time the launch happened, audience was like, oh my goodness, I remember when you talked about that. Oh, this is so crazy. I remember you had the issue with that. Oh my God, this is so cool. I can't wait. And then the moment I launch, it becomes a bestseller because people have already invested into it. The transaction is the easy bit once you know what the process has been. Similar to a card games I make. I don't just sit there and go, I'm going to make the question, make the design and print it. No, I'm holding polls on what color the packaging is, what themes people want, how many questions they would prefer, what they liked about the last game, what they disliked about the last game. All of these things, even if you don't even take it into consideration, even if you think to yourself, I'm a creative, I know exactly what I want to do, I don't care what anybody thinks, give your audience an illusion of an investment that goes both ways. They want to feel like you need them as much as they need you, and you need to like really feed that relationship. I think what a lot of business owners don't understand is that you are asking for a lot when you're asking someone to buy from you. Like, it is like, think about what minimum wage is. $20, $25 in Australia, maybe something like that. So you want someone, my card games, for example, are $40. You want someone to pay you an hour and a half worth of work to play a game? Come on now. You got to make it worthwhile. You're going to make them feel like they need that game. And what people emphasize is like persuasive marketing and manipulative marketing. No, just make the product good. And the way you make the product good is you validate it with the customer. And if you don't know how to reach your customer, then that is an issue.
Yeah, you're probably in the wrong biz. I think that, that's so true. I do think that people also want to support a business or support a product that they feel like they helped create. And if you can get people involved early on with like those polls and any kind of engagement, they feel like they're part of it. Like they really do want to support you, and they'll be the people that are bringing in the new customers. They'll be recommending you on the Instagram stories, all of that.
Yeah.
You know who does that really well is CJ Hendry, the Australian artist over here in New York. She she does that so well, where she shows you what she's doing. She asks like, what do you think? She is showing you exactly the amount of effort that goes into each piece. And then when she launches something, it sells out like that because everyone is there waiting. Like they're so invested in that collection that she's been working for months to put together.
Absolutely. And I think for most people, for most business owners, you should be selling a solution to a problem. And your customers should be the people who want that solution to that problem. So why wouldn't you ask them what they think? You would hate to go through all this effort to conceive a product and have it not work for a customer because you didn't ask them one question about how big do you want it? How small do you want it? What colors do you like? How much would you pay for it? What fabrics do you want? Do you care that it's made here or overseas? All of these questions should be answered by your audience before you even make anything.
Absolutely. And before we sign off, I'd love for a recommendation on a tool, an app, a program, something that's kind of helped you grow your business that you recommend to others.
Oh, I have so many things. Okay. The first is you really, really do have to study. And I know that people would love to run an intuitive business, but unfortunately, you don't have the skill yet. If you're in the early stages, you just don't have the skill to do things just by thinking. So definitely listen to Female Startup Club. It's a podcast for women entrepreneurs. Definitely sign up to the Shopify blog. There's also a great TikTok called Sell Anything Online. Fantastic. So definitely do all of that. In terms of a tool, what I found to be really helpful is paid marketing. I think is more effort than it's worth if you don't know what you're doing. You're going to blow through a lot of money and get very little results. So I think that if you do want to think about marketing outside of social media, which everybody should be doing, focus on email marketing and SMS marketing. Email marketing is fantastic because you can build your own ecosystem and talk to your audience whenever you want. Because as we know, it's far cheaper to talk to an audience member that you already have access to than to reach someone new. So focus on building that email database. Give people incentives, give them free phone wallpapers, give them free ebooks, give them something that is worth the transaction of their email for that free product. And then cultivate a relationship with them in that ecosystem. And when you have a bit of money to spend, I definitely recommend SMS marketing. We're using it currently and we've got a 17 times return, which is just insane. And that basically means for every dollar we spend, we make $17. And you can imagine for every $100 we spend, we make this much. It's just so good. And I feel like another tool that people should really utilize is open discussion with other business owners. Again, don't go up to the CEO of a corporation and expect a handout. It's not happening. Stop asking people who are far further down in their business journey to take time out of their day to ask you for a coffee. It's not worth the transaction for them, and you're asking for way more than you're giving them. Talk to your peers. If you come across a TikTok or an Instagram reel of someone...
Yes, peer mentorship, everyone.
Exactly. Who is in your kind of stage of business running, talk to them. That is going to be so beneficial. And I think you really need to trust your audiences. If you don't have a good relationship with your audience at the moment, you need to get your face on camera. You need to start making some content.
I am going to sneak in one more question because the SMS marketing thing I'm really interested in. Is there a platform that you use, or do you have any learnings about how to best leverage that channel? Because it's such a personal one. If I get a text from someone, better be good, and it better be someone that I was expecting a text from,
Absolutely. So we currently use SMS Bump, and we use that app through Shopify, and it links with our Klaviyo as well, which is an email marketing software. And so with our SMS marketing, we don't send random cold messages like, hey, blah, blah, blah. But what we do is when somebody comes to our website and they put something in their cart and they leave it, we send them a message with a discount. And the thing about an email versus an SMS, there's urgency with a text. They're getting it when they're ready to shop. You use your phone to shop, you get a text, you're like, oh, what's this? A discount. They can make that transaction right there. As opposed to emails, they're in there with your junk. It's in there with the things that you don't want to be reading. It gets lost. And it's also an expensive exercise. So yeah, definitely do SMS marketing with an abandoned cart flow. And the reason why I recommend doing that is because you can guarantee that the person who put the stuff in their cart is so much further down the digital marketing funnel than someone you cold messaged for no reason. So we already know that person has gone all the way from exposure to awareness to consideration, and they were right at conversion. and they didn't buy. So we can assume it has something to do with the price because they were already in the cart and they didn't press, confirm order. So then offer them a discount, especially one that you can financially afford as well. I know a lot of small businesses are giving out discounts they literally cannot afford. So give them something small, something sweet, 10%, 15%, and make sure you emphasize urgency. It's valid for the next day, the next 12 hours, the next 45 minutes, whatever it is, because if you don't give the impression that there's urgency, customers will wait, or something else will take their attention, or something else will put them off some more. So yeah, definitely give it a whirlsy. And it costs between 30 cents to $1 to send one text message. And that's it. You're in full control over that interaction. You can change the message. You can add emojis. You can add imagery. It's really fun. And again, you want to be spending money reaching people are interested in your product. A lot of us don't have the kind of money to be going to cold audiences and being like, hey, look at me. Because imagine, let's say you're doing Facebook marketing and you're spending $1 per click, right? Doesn't sound like a lot of money. However, once you find out it takes the average person about 5 times to see your product before they even consider buying it, you've already spent $5 per click. Maybe it's costing you $10 to convert. That's already $15 you've spent to get them to buy your product. It's too much money and you probably cannot afford it. So be more strategic with how you talk to your audiences and also which audiences you're trying to nurture. Again, take as much care speaking to your existing audiences as you do speaking to new audiences because they're going to notice. They're going to notice.
That is awesome advice and really great insights on the SMS marketing particularly. So thank you. And thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing everything about your story. I'm much appreciated.
My pleasure, of course.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Female Founder World. A reminder that we are a daily podcast, so that means another episode, another interview will be dropping tomorrow. The best thing you can do to support the show is to just leave a 5-star review. That helps other people find us. I'll see you tomorrow.